Okay, so what I'm hearing is if you are going to do a gap year, make sure you have something to show for it, as you said, make sure it's meaningful. This reminds me of actually a family that I work with. One of their daughters took a gap year and did service work in the Middle East. To your point, some of these opportunities might not be available today. But that gap year ended up being hugely valuable for her, not just in the service work that she did alone, but she was so emboldened and, it just impassioned her to further pursue a specific course of study. And when she did start school, she just hit the ground running because she had so much clarity about what she wanted to study, what she wanted to accomplish, maybe the groups that she needed to be involved in, et cetera. So it really did give her this very clear outline of next steps. Whereas I think for a lot of times when we see students entering college, it's this, I don't know what I'm going to major in, or this is this year, and, I don't know. And for her, it was just hugely clarifying. So it was very, very meaningful and very, very valuable.
Yeah. A great outcome from a gap year. I love to hear that.
I mean, that's an ideal outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there will be amazing outcomes from this year as well, with students that were able to serve their community and really find ways to give back or to grow and develop on their own, but definitely takes a creative approach. And it should be noted that for current seniors, you apply to school as normal, even if you think you're going to take a gap year. You go through the whole application process and apply for your gap year after you've been admitted and committed to a school. And that if you're able to hold a spot at that school for the year while you do something different, then that's great.
Is there some risk in that?
In the just applying for a gap year?
Yes.
I mean, I used to work with students who the vast majority of them actually did take a gap year. And I think that the most common, I don't know if you call it risk, because at the end of the day, I think it was what was best for the student. The most common challenge that came out of the year was that they may have realized that the school that they committed to was no longer the best fit for them.
Wow, interesting.
Because they had been so changed or transformed in that experience. And so that, I think, would be the biggest challenge, right? There's so many ways that a student can grow in a gap year. And the reality is when you apply to college from high school, you have lots of preferences, and I work very closely with my students to define those preferences, but they change. They change between junior and senior year. They change after you're not in high school anymore.
Yeah.
So trying to capture that best fit can be the, I think, biggest challenge.
Like a moving target.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had this conversation recently with a client who is very entrepreneurial and has a son heading to college. And, I said, have you guys considered a gap year? And they said, well, yes, we did. We talked to, a lot of people we know in the business community, heads of businesses, et cetera. And what we heard a lot of was, you know what, this is a crazy time. Everyone's having to pivot, switch gears, adapt. And by not taking a gap year, we're demonstrating that, you know what, we're still moving forward. We're pressing forward. We're not just trying to dodge our way out of this situation. So I thought that was a valid point, but going back to an earlier point in our conversation, I feel like even if you do decide to take a gap year, but you are ultimately entrepreneurial and you are capable of pivoting, you can still demonstrate that in other ways, right? There's all these other ways you can share your story in that narrative that you had mentioned.
Absolutely. I agree.
So it's never like a done deal. I think even if you do decide to take a gap year, sentiments like that are not, not final. There's always another way to demonstrate the story and share the narrative.
And it is such a personal, unique, individual decision for students. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, very good information.